Hi, I'm Mike Nunn. I'm an actor here in Traverse City. I'm sitting on the set of the play 12 Angry Men at the Old Town Playhouse. I've been asked to talk a little bit about myself and the other characters and the play. None of us has names. We're all designated by the playwright as having numbers, juror numbers. I play juror number 11. This is a 12-man jury. The play is a period play set in the mid-1950s in New York City. The setting is just a single scene. It's the jury room. We're all locked in. And we have been asked by the judge to decide upon the guilt or innocence of a young man on trial for murder. He is alleged to have stabbed his father with a switchblade knife, and the entire body of the play describes the circumstances of the murder and whether this young man should be decided guilty or not guilty. I'm a character actor. I've been asked to play a German immigrant who has come to the United States during the rise of the Nazis in Germany, and this character apparently emigrated from Germany right about the time that World War II began with the attack on England and the subsequent events that led to World War II. So I'm a relatively new citizen in the United States. I'm a watchmaker. Each of us gets a certain amount of information that we glean from the script, and there is a very brief, maybe one paragraph description of each of the characters, who they are, kind of where they're from, what they do. So what I have gotten from the script is that I came to the United States fleeing from the Nazis in Germany. The rest of who we are, we pretty much decide on our own as actors. I think it's important that we know more than just what we're given, even if we have to make it up, because it tends to flesh out what we offer in these roles in the play. So there's some things about my character, who is a watchmaker. I'm asked by one of the jurors, what do I do? And I say, I'm a watchmaker. My character still has an accent, a Middle European accent. I don't consider myself an accent specialist. I'm very good at certain accents. I've never done a German accent before, but as an actor, I take it upon myself to study that and develop this accent, not only to be able to pass myself as someone from Germany, but also to help determine who it is, exactly who the character is, not just how I speak, but the words that I choose and how I choose to accent certain words. All of those things are something that we actors do homework about.
Well, this then depends upon your definition of panic. He was calm enough to see to it that there were no fingerprints on the knife. So where does his panic start and where does it end?
Listen, you can forget all that other stuff. He still came back to dig out the knife and get rid of it.
3 hours later?
Sure, 3 hours later.
If I were a boy and I had killed my father, I would not come back 3 hours later. I would be afraid that the police would be there. I would stay away, knife or no knife.
Listen, you voted guilty, didn't you? Whose side are you on?
I don't believe I have any loyalty to one side or the other. I am simply asking questions.
Now, having talked about number 11, I could say just a few things about the other jurors. And as the foreman says in the beginning of the play, why don't we just go in order and everyone talk about what their thoughts are about this trial. So starting with the foreman, we see the foreman as a younger man in his 30s. Clearly he has not served on a jury before, certainly not as a foreman. and he struggles with the authority that the court invests in him as the foreman, because the role of the foreman is to it would be very much like a chairman, to conduct the proceedings in an orderly fashion and make sure that the jury properly arrives at its verdict. The judge gives no specific instructions as to how to go about that. And so at certain points during the proceedings, the foreman's authority is brought into question. And so he has to kind of pass a test. And he reveals through the course of his discussions that he is an assistant football coach at a high school, and that he's certainly capable of leading a group of young men in a concentrated and focused effort. And so from that perspective, he does have the knowledge that is required to be an effective foreman. But this is a different kind of environment. These are not kids, these are grown men. The foreman is, he's not a taskmaster. He doesn't want to offend anybody. And there are many times that the situation in the jury room gets very tense, and it gets right on the edge of disorder and chaos. So the foreman's job is, in this play, is a very difficult one. Moving around the table, jury number 2 is a wonderful character. He is actually played by someone who in real life is a psychologist, and a psychologist who is married to a neurologist. But he has some theater experience, and he plays one of the more difficult roles in this script, in that he's kind of mousy. He reveals that he's a banker, and probably just a teller. And he kind of fits that stereotype. He's small in stature, he wears thick glasses. He does have opinions, and he tries to voice them, but he's very unsure of himself in a group, as many people are. Speaking in front of a group of people can be difficult, because not all of us get a chance to practice that. And in a real jury room, those are skills that are tested. So in this play, number 2 is looked upon as kind of a mouse, and he gets a little abused by some of the more aggressive jury members. And to be able to play that really well requires effort and concentration. And our number 2 is wonderful. It's one of my favorite roles. Moving on, we get to number 3. And number 3 is one of the real fulcrums of this drama. Number 3 is convinced, as we all are at the beginning, but he's convinced more than any of us that this kid is guilty. And during the course of the action, we discover that even though he says it's not a personal thing, number 3 is really projecting on this young defendant his own experiences with his own son, with whom he had a very rough upbringing, and when his son became an adult, they had a parting of the ways. And so there's a lot of transference, if you want to use psychological terms. Number 3 tends to confuse this defendant with his experiences with his own son. And he is the most stalwart proponent of the guilty verdict. And he's played by a wonderful actor. In the script, this guy is someone who has pulled himself up by his own bootstraps. He runs a message delivery service with dozens of employees. So he's very sure of himself and very proud of himself. And he admits that he has been on juries in the past. So this is a character that you really pay attention to when he's got something to say. And he's pretty much the needle in everyone's side. And not just bluster. I mean, he's very clever, and he paid attention during the trial, and he's able to bring up points of evidence to counter those other jurors who develop some doubts as to whether the prosecution really proved its case. A wonderful role. Going on to number 4. Number 4 is a stockbroker, a finance guy. Very dignified, very intelligent, but very cold. Although he's well-mannered, he is not offensive, and he's one of the peacekeepers in the jury room. But he gives the impression that he's kind of above everyone else, without actually having to say so. And so his opinions, he's another one of the holdouts who sticks to the evidence as presented. And the evidence presented is pretty compelling. There's an eyewitness who claims that she saw this young defendant stab his dad. Number 4 appears as the voice of reason. And he clings to the testimony as it was presented, despite the fact that others are putting chinks in the armor of the prosecution. Number 5 is the youngest of the jurors. He's a young man who works as a nurse in a neighborhood hospital. The play is located in New York City. And number 5 works in a probably somewhere around Harlem, one of the poorer districts of Manhattan. And he services the population that was his community growing up, and he grew up in the slums. And he identifies with this kid because this kid has grown up in a bad area. So number 5 has a lot of personal compassion towards the defendant. And he is crucial in helping put some doubt on some of the evidence that the prosecution has presented. One of the things was the murder weapon, and as it turns out, number 5 was kind of a miscreant himself as a young man, and admits to having had expertise with that kind of weapon, and did not believe that the prosecution was accurate in describing how that weapon could be used. So number 5, again, he's another person who doesn't like to talk in front of people, but when he's convinced that the evidence is going the wrong way, he stands up and speaks his piece. Number 6 is a painter. He's a big guy, a simple guy, pretty common sense, who has gone along with the prosecution because the prosecution presented a pretty straightforward case. It was not real dramatic. The evidence was pretty compelling, and number 6, just being a common sense guy, went along with that. But also being a reasonable person, when doubts are brought up by some of the other jurors, he thinks about that. Number 7 doesn't want to be there. He makes it real clear to everyone that he's got a baseball game that he wants to go to. And he's kind of the jokester of the group. He's got wisecracks that he's saying. He tends to get the discussion off track a lot with his flippant attitude. But at the end, he becomes reasonable like everyone else. Now, the next juror, number 8, is really the fulcrum of the play. Number 8 is the one, without revealing the plot, he's the one who wants to talk about this. Let's talk about what happened, rather than just everybody voting guilty and sending this kid to the electric chair. He shows real compassion for justice, not just for this defendant, but for the process. He wants to make sure that the jury has engaged in due process. So number 8, he really is the individual around whom everyone else in the jury room swings. Number 9 is the oldest, as number 5 is the youngest. He's been around. Number 9 is not easily excited. He tends to sit back and just look at what's happening. He's a little slower to come to conclusions than everyone else does, but he comes to a very important conclusion well on into the play that helps change the direction that things are going. Number 10, if there is a stereotype in this play, number 10 is it. He is the bigot. He's the racist. He's the one that picks fights throughout the whole process, and he really stands in the way of due process. At the very end, he finally says, "I don't even care what the law says." Of course, he has to be confronted at some point. But he's kind of like the physical tension in this play. Number 11 is me. I've already talked about that. Number 12, the last juror, is he's an ad man, a 1950s style ad man. And he's an okay guy. His life is full of sayings, cliches. Let's run it up the flagpole and see if anyone salutes it. And he is called outright wishy-washy at one point in the play because he changes his vote back and forth almost on a whim. But again, he's not somebody who wants to stick out. He's a follower. And his pride is in being unique is his ability to write jingles for ad campaigns. So that's it for the 12 jurors. I think Reginald Rose, the playwright, really gave us 12 great personalities, each of them unique. And our director, Deb Hershey, has given this play 12 actors who fit these roles really well.
Guy talks like that to an old man ought to really get stepped on, you know?
Get your hands off of
Hey,
me.
you ought to have some respect, mister. You say stuff like that to him again, I'm gonna lay you out. Go ahead. You can say anything you want. Why do you think the old man might lie?
So at this point, I would like to introduce our esteemed director, Deb Hershey, who is the mastermind of this entire production. And I must say that her vision in the long run has been spot on and very compelling, which of course led to several of us who've had directing experience ourselves taking issue with some of the decisions that she made in the development of this production. But Deb has had the last laugh. I totally respect her decisions, and especially right up to the very final moment of the play, she has produced a mental image that is very unique, original, and something that people who come to see this play will not forget for a long time. So here's Debbie Hershey.
Hi, I'm Debbie Hershey, and I'm the director of 12 Angry Men that we are presenting at the Old Town Playhouse in Traverse City, Michigan. 12 Angry Men is an iconic American piece of writing about an American situation, and that is a jury of 12 anonymous people and what they do at the conclusion of a criminal trial when they enter the jury room. So from a community theater perspective, from the very beginning, we wanted to cast 12 men. But as the people in community theater know, sometimes it's difficult to have men come to auditions. So if I was giving advice to someone who was going to be directing or producing 12 Angry Men, I can only tell you that we spent many weeks on the phone, emailing, calling, and writing lots of different male actors in the area, asking them to come to auditions. And that turned out to be successful. We had about 38 people audition for the play, which is a lot of people for a straight drama. Now, we weren't sure how many men were going to come to auditions, so we did open the auditions up to women. And we had a fair number of women who did come to auditions. But Reginald Rose's script, which is about a jury in 1957, is just a very uniquely written script for men. And it was very difficult to figure out where on earth we would actually cast women, because the dialogue is very male-driven and the action is very male-driven. So fortunately, we did not have to face that situation, but I can say that if we were to have faced that situation, we were considering making juror number 8 a woman, because juror number 8 is one of the more logical, even-keeled characters. The other character that we considered being a woman was juror number 2. the shyer, meeker person. Not that I want to suggest that women are meek, but women in 1957 probably would not have been terribly forceful and certainly wouldn't have been threatening to hit a male, which is several times in the script. So that was the audition process. And as far as the production process went, I had the good fortune to surround myself with a very experienced production team, and everyone shared in the vision of 12 Men to keep the play set in 1957 and to have the set reflect what the script suggested, that it was a beaten up jury room. And we really wanted that from the very beginning. And we did look online at several professional productions of 12 Angry Men, and we saw a lot of really beautiful jury rooms. And we just felt that a New York criminal court in 1957 in the heat of the summer would be beaten up. And we were very fortunate to have a professional set designer contact us who has done some work here at the Playhouse. His name is Matt McCormick. He's a very talented person, and he shared in that vision right away. So our set really does look like a beaten up, well-used jury room. Another thing that we were very determined to have was actual water on the stage in two places, one in the sink and one when it rains. So in Act 2 of the script, a storm plays a very pivotal part of the story. And we were determined that we were going to have it rain on stage, and we have an engineer involved in the production, Bill Hershey, who happens to be my husband, and he built a very intricate rain machine so that it could rain on stage. And he also created a pumping system that can pump water into the sink, so we have water. And so far, audience members have been very thrilled to see it rain on stage, so that's something that's worked out very well for us too.
But I still think the boy is guilty of murder, and I have two reasons. One, the evidence given by the woman across the street who actually saw the murder committed.
And how, brother? As far as I'm concerned, that's the most important testimony in the whole case.
And two, the fact that she described the stabbing by saying she saw the boy raise his arm over his head and plunge the knife down into his father's chest. She saw him do it the wrong way.
That's right. It's absolutely right.
Now let's talk about this woman for a minute. She says she went to bed at 11 o'clock that night. Her bed is next to the window, and she could look out by lying down and see directly into the boy's window across the tracks. Now, she tossed and turned for about an hour, unable to sleep. Finally, she turned over and looked out the window at about 10 minutes after 12 and saw the killing through the windows of a passing L train. Now, she says the lights went out immediately after the killing, but that she got a good look at the boy in the act of stabbing his father. She saw him do it. Now, as far as I can see, this is unshakable testimony.
That's what I'm talking about. That's the whole case.
Well, what do you think?
As far as other types of challenges with mounting a production of 12 Angry Men, it's like any other play, is helping the actors to form very real and very distinct characters. The 12 men are somewhat described by Reginald Rose in the script, but they're not very well defined. And so we did a lot of character work with our 12 actors. And one thing that I insisted on was that they remain anonymous to one another. So that is another very important part of the script, is the concept of anonymity. So everyone involved in the play has no name. The jurors are known by numbers or as a foreman, and the defendant is known as the defendant. The prosecutor is known as the prosecutor. No one has a name. But of course, our 12 actors created very intricate character backstories. And yes, they did have names and very complete stories, which they shared with the directing team, but did not share with one another. So even we opened last night, and they still do not know the backstory of each other's character. But they have brought out in their acting their backstories quite well, and it's been really fun to watch the other actors, or the actors react to one another as some of this backstory is starting to creep out. And we've promised each other that on closing night we will share the complete backstories of one another. But even at rehearsal, we did not call each other by names. So I was director, and everybody was only known by their number. And I think that really helped to keep that feeling of anonymity going on stage. One of the main challenges in directing such an iconic piece of literature that is so well known as a movie is bringing it to life on stage. Many people questioned me as a director of how we were going to make this interesting, since everybody knows the movie, everybody knows the outcome, and what would we do to make it different from a movie. And all I can say about that from what we've been hearing today, because our opening night was last night, is when you mount this production on stage, it feels more personal. It feels as though, as an audience member, you are actually in the jury room with them. And the several challenges were creating this feeling of stifling heat. The actors really have to pay close attention to that because it's supposed to be 100 degrees outside with 100% humidity. We know that the fan does not work. There's no air conditioning in 1957. There are 3 windows in our set and one of them stuck shut, so they can only open 2 windows. And in Act 2, a summer storm comes along, and as we all know, when you're in a very hot situation in the summer and a storm comes along, it sometimes actually makes it hotter, stickier, very high humidity. So the actors have to pay close attention in their stage business to remember to show the audience how hot it is and to do it in different ways. You know, what I kept saying to them was, I don't want to see 12 people going like this all the time. So they've had to work really hard on how would they show how uncomfortable they are.
You come in here with your sanctimonious talk about slum kids and injustice, and you start making up a bunch of stories, and maybe you start getting through to some of these old ladies in here. But you're not getting through to me. I've had enough. What's the matter with you people, huh? Every one of you in here knows this kid is guilty. He's got to burn. We're letting him slip through our fingers here.
Slip through our fingers? Are you his executioner?
Well, I'm one of them.
Oh, maybe you'd like to pull the switch.
Now, for this kid, you bet I'd like to pull the switch.
I'm sorry for you.
Listen, don't you start with me now.
Ever since you walked in here, you've been behaving like some self-appointed public avenger.
I'm telling you, shut up.
You want to see this boy die because you personally want it, not because of the facts.
Shut up.
You're a sadist.
Son of a bitch. Shut up, I said! God damn it, let me go! Kill him! Kill him!
You don't really mean you'll kill me, do you?
So that manifested itself in many ways. It was one of the reasons why we wanted to have real water in the sink so they can go to the sink and wet their face. They can roll up their sleeves. They can loosen their ties. There's a lot of different things that they are all doing, and it's still evolving. So that, and really a personal challenge for this particular production was we put together very veteran actors, but with very inexperienced actors. So we have 13 actors, and out of the 13 of them, 5 have little to no experience. So what that meant for me as a director was to work with those 5 outside of rehearsals. And the types of things we worked on were a lot to do with their speech, not swallowing word endings, knowing how to support your speaking with breathing properly through the diaphragm, what to do with your hands, what to do with your face, and a lot of work on character.
Pretty good guess. Anyone else?
That sounds right to me.
Come on, what's this guessing game for?
What would you say?
10 seconds, approximately.
All right, say 10 seconds. What are you getting at?
I didn't have to work so much with the veteran actors because many of these guys have been on stage for years, and I did create a character background sheet that I handed out to everybody. I didn't collect it, I didn't read what they wrote, but to give them something to work from, and they seem to appreciate that quite a bit. I think another, challenge somewhat is our production team was very female, and our actors were all male. And so that created a very interesting dynamic, and we set a tone very early on of respectfulness to the production team and respectfulness to one another. And I can say that, we, all of us who've been in theater for a long time, we know that there are some productions where people get along and there's some productions where people don't get along. And every once in a while, you come across a production where the entire team, from the production team to the set building crew to the actors, all want to work together to make something special happen. And we went into this with that expectation. And we discussed it right up front, and that's exactly what happened. This has been a relatively drama-free production where everyone's gotten along very well. And I just personally believe when that's the case, it shows on stage. And you can tell that the actors are really supporting one another, and no one wants to stand out over someone else. And they were supporting each other through the rehearsal period, and now are supporting each other in the production. And it's a really beautiful thing to see.
As an actor, when auditioning for a classic play such as 12 Angry Men, on reading it you find that there are certain roles that an actor would feel particularly challenged by or want to try out for. And in this play, I think that most of us would agree that juror number 8 is the fulcrum, I think I may have said that before, upon which the fortunes of the play revolve. And the gentleman who auditioned for this part, although he did tell me he would have taken any role that was offered him, and I think the rest of us would agree with that. Number 8 was the role that he coincidentally had played 25 years ago in his first ever audition for a theater piece here at the Playhouse, or anywhere else for that matter. And he got the role of number 8 back then, and he was awarded the role of number 8 again this time. And I don't think that's an accident. I'm talking about Rick Korndorfer. Rick Korndorfer is a friend of mine and a veteran actor here. As I said, we're talking 25 years just here at the Playhouse. And an excellent actor, and someone whose own personality, I think, befits the character that he plays in this show. But before talking about him any further, I think that Rick can probably acquit himself much better than I could say anything about him. So why don't we hear from Rick?
Well, my name is Rick Korndorfer, and I am in the play 12 Angry Men here in Traverse City, Michigan in January of 2016. I came to be in the play kind of happenstance. I was there was another play that was going to be is being produced about the same exact time in a small town north of here, about 30 miles, and I've worked with that director before, and they were doing a Ken Ludwig piece, and I've been in several of Ken Ludwig plays, Moon Over Buffalo and Lend Me a Tenor and Leading Ladies and a few other ones. And I like him because he's a comedic writer. In fact, I think he's the finest comedic writer, playwright alive. And so I kind of wanted to do that, and I had read the play, and then I realized that this play was also going to be happening at the same time. And the director asked me to read for this, and so I thought, well, I need to read both plays. So I did. And after I read them, I realized that I need to audition for this show. And so I did, and I was fortunate that I got cast as juror number 8. I did not anticipate that, to be honest with you. I traditionally get cast as more of a character type. I don't usually get the lead, if there is such a thing. Probably juror number 8 would be somewhat of a lead in this play because he has the brunt of the work as far as the lines, and he's the one character that sways the other 11 that there is reasonable doubt, and then we find the defendant innocent in the end.
The old man's apartment is directly beneath it and exactly the same. Here are the L tracks. This is the bedroom, another bedroom, bathroom, living room, kitchen. And here's the hall. And this is the front door to the apartment, and here are the stairs. Now, the old man was in bed in this room. He said he got up, went out into the hall, down the hall to the front door, opened it, and looked out just in time to see the boy racing down the stairs. Am I right so far?
That's the story for the 19th time.
15 seconds after he heard the body fall.
Correct.
His bed was at the window. It's 12 feet from his bed to the bedroom door. The length of the hall is 43 feet 6 inches. Now, he had to get up out of bed, walk 12 feet, open the bedroom door, walk 43 feet, open the front door, all in 15 seconds. Do you think he could have done it?
Sure he could have done
He
it.
could only walk very slowly. He needed help just to get to the
Look,
witness
you're making
stand.
it sound like it's a long walk. It's not.
What, for an old man that's just had a stroke?
So I went to auditions, and it was a 2-night of auditions, and I never read juror number 8. I never read juror number 4. I never read juror number 7. And I'm not even sure if I read number 3. But those were, you know, the real meaty characters, in my opinion. All of them are, you know, delicious characters, but those were the ones that were real interesting. And so I sent an email to the director, and I asked, I said, is there any way I could read 8 and 7 and 10 and 3 the next night if I come back? She says, yes, come back and read again. So I did, and I got lucky, and I got cast as juror number 8. So then I started to work on my lines, and that has been, somewhat challenging because I have to know the entire play. I cannot just learn a passage that I'm in and then I don't say anything for 4 or 5 pages. This particular character has lines throughout the play, and some passages are heavy with lines, and then there might only be 1 or 2 lines on another page. But I have to know what everyone is doing all the time to be able to play my character, because my character is kind of the straw that stirs the drink, so to speak. He's the one that is focused on all 11 other characters. He doesn't come in with a preconceived notion that he's guilty. He just doesn't know. He just wants to talk about it. So he gets started in that frame of mind, and the play evolves from there.
I was wondering how clearly the old man could have heard the boy through the ceiling.
He didn't hear him through the ceiling. His window was open, and so was the window upstairs. It was a hot night, remember?
The voice came from another apartment. It's not easy to identify a voice, especially a shouting voice.
We identified it in court. He picked the boy's voice out of 5 other voices, blindfold.
That was nothing more than an ambitious district attorney putting on a show.
As you probably already know, it's a beautifully written play. It's just an absolutely beautifully written play, and it's just so interesting how this particular person, this juror number 8, has some doubts, and he is able to slowly influence other jurors over to his thinking. And then, of course, by the end of the play, it's a dramatic scene with the last few people coming around.
I guess there's no argument.
Wait a minute. Give me that thing. Hate these things. Grew up with them.
Have you seen them used in fights?
Too many of them. On my stoop, in my backyard, and the lot across the street. Switch knives came with the neighborhood where I lived. Funny I wasn't thinking of it. I guess you try to forget those things. You don't hold this kind of knife like that. You hold it like this to release the blade. In order to stab downward, you'd have to switch your grip.
How do you use it?
Underhanded. Like this. Anyone who's ever used a switch knife would never handle it any other way.
Are you sure?
I'm sure. That's why they're made like this.
Everyone agreed that the boy was pretty handy with a knife, didn't they?
That's right.
Do you think he would have made the kind of stab wound that killed his father?
No, not with the experience he had with these things. I don't think he would. He'd go for him underhanded.
How do you know? Were you in the room when the father was killed?
No, and neither was anyone else.
And you're giving us a lot of mumbo jumbo here. I don't believe it.
I don't think you can determine what kind of wound the boy might or might not have made simply because he knows how to handle a knife.
That's right. You're absolutely right.
What do you think?
Well, I don't know.
What do you mean you don't know?
Well, I don't know.
Down and in.
I don't know.
What about you?
I know, just a minute. According to the woman across the street, she's...
Now listen, I'll tell you something here. I'm getting a little tired of this whole thing. I mean, all this yakking's getting us nowhere. So I'm gonna break it up here. I'm changing my vote to not guilty.
Hey, you what?
Hey, you heard me. I've had enough.
What do you mean you've had enough? That's not an
Hey,
answer.
listen, you just take care of yourself.
Try to
He is
take
right.
care of business.
That is not an answer. What kind of man are you? You have sat here and voted with the others, voted guilty because there were some baseball tickets burning a hole in your pocket, and now you have changed your vote because you say you are tired of all the talking here?
Now listen,
You
buddy.
have no right to play like this with a man's life. It is a terrible and ugly thing to do. Don't you care?
Now, wait a minute. You can't talk like
I
that.
can talk like that to you. If you want to vote not guilty, then vote that way because you are convinced he is not guilty. Not because you had enough. And if you think he is guilty, then vote that way. Or don't you have the guts to do what you think is right?
Now listen.
Guilty or not guilty?
I told you, not guilty.
Why?
Hey, God damn you. I don't have to.
You have to. Say it. Why?
I don't think he's guilty.
Mr. Foreman, I'd like another vote.
There's another vote called for it. Anybody object? All right, I guess the quickest way is a show of hands. All those voting not guilty, raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
It's such a beautiful play. It's so telling about our society and our system of government and our system of justice. And really, one of the most interesting things, and this director has done such a beautiful job, that there are 12 real distinct characters in this show. No two characters are alike, in my opinion. I know we have the bigots and the bullies and the racist, and you can say, well, they're similar, and they are somewhat, but they're all different, and they all have different reasons to find the defendant guilty, and the accused guilty, I should say. And it's just the most fantastic piece of writing. I can't say enough about it. My character is, I don't want to repeat myself, but my character is somewhat of a challenge for me personally because he is what I call the straight man. And I usually don't get to play the straight man. I play more of an unusual character. And so this guy is the voice of reason and logic, and he's extremely thoughtful and very intelligent, and he doesn't get caught up in the emotion as much as the others. That's not to say that he's not emotional, because I think he is, but he doesn't let it get in the way of his mindset, of his ability to think. And it's been real fun for me to try to find him and to bring him to life. And I feel like I have now. I feel real good about what I'm doing with him, and I'm having a lot of fun with him because of that. I would like to say a little bit about the play process itself. I was in one play one time that I absolutely loved the way it was structured, because we went to auditions, we got cast. The play was a George Bernard Shaw piece called Overruled, and it got cast, and the director gave us our scripts and said, "I'll see you in a month. Come back off book." And I must say, that was the most rewarding experience for me as a community player, because I did my work and I came back and I was, for the most part, 90% off book. And so we started rehearsing. We started blocking and running our lines at the same time. Normally what happens is what happens in this show. You get cast, come Monday, we start rehearsing, we're all standing up there with a script in our hand, we got our nose in the script, we're trying to read the lines, we're trying to get through the blocking, we're trying to develop a character, and it's very difficult. But I think, particularly as we age, if we do have those extra weeks where we know who our character is, we know what the script is, and we can just do our work on our own, and then when we come together to rehearse, it makes the process that much more enjoyable for me personally, because I think we get more done at a faster pace. This play was rewarding for me because of the play and the people that are in it, who I have become very close to. Many of them I knew before, but there's new ones, and I like all of them. But we ended up going through a period in this play where we didn't rehearse for 2 weeks in the middle of the rehearsal schedule because of the Christmas break. And I think that was difficult for us. It was difficult for me. I kept doing my work at home, but when you're not hearing the other players deliver their lines, you lose something in the translation. And so I think it hurt us that we had that 2-week period off, and then we came back, we had 2 more weeks, and then we opened the show. That just was the way it worked out because of the holidays. That was what it was. But that concept of getting the script first, getting your lines, and then coming into rehearsal, I find that very rewarding, and I would like to see our theater do more of that, actually.
Now, juror number 10 is another pivotal character in this play. A very strong role, unfortunately a very bigoted and unreasonable and angry role. And this was filled by Ed Mulcahy, who is another veteran actor at the Playhouse. He also has directing experience, a really convincing and talented actor who is asked to give us a diatribe that lasts a full 5 or 6 minutes towards the end of the play, revealing what a despicable character he is. And believe it or not, actors really look forward to getting parts like that. We don't just get on stage so that people think that we're nice and great. We get on stage because these roles offer a tremendous challenge. And Ed Mulcahy is up to that challenge 100%. and I'd be very interested to hear what Ed Mulcahy himself says about this role. So here he is.
Hi, my name's Ed Mulcahy, and I play juror number 10 in 12 Angry Men, which is being performed at the Old Town Playhouse, winter 2016. I went to auditions as a request from the director, who I had spent time with earlier in the year for Becky's New Car. So at any rate, that's what brought me to auditions. I wasn't really that familiar with the show, familiar with the title, not familiar with the storyline. I hate to say it, but I think everybody had an uncle like juror number 10. Growing up in Detroit in the 60s, I remember a lot of people talking that way, and it was the social norm then. I don't think that people realized that they were being bigots or racists or anything derogatory. I think that they were just, I think they would refer to like shooting from the hip. So unfortunately, I pulled that from some of this from memories of other people. Juror number 10 is an antagonist, and he is a racist, and he is a bigot.
He's twisting the facts here. I'm telling you. Did the old man see the kid running out of the house or not? Well, did you, didn't he?
He says he did.
What? How you like that? He says he did. Huh? Well, did the woman see the kid stick the knife into his father's body? Because, you know, she said she did. You make it out like it don't matter what people think or say. You believe what you want to believe, and what you don't want to believe, you don't. What kind of way is that? What do you suppose these people get on the witness stands for? Huh? Their health? I'm telling you, man, the facts are getting twisted around here. Witnesses are being doubted, and there's no reason for it.
Witnesses can make mistakes.
Oh, yeah, sure they can. When you need them to, they sure can.
All right, let's hold the yelling down, please.
Well, you keep saying that. But maybe what we need is a little yelling around here. All these guys are going off every which way. Didn't hear the scream, didn't hear the scream. What difference does it make? They're just little things. You're forgetting about the important stuff here. I mean, like, all of a sudden...
I'd like to call for another vote.
Hey, I'm talking here!
You can storm onto the stage and be this big racist, bigoty person that everybody will be tired of looking at in 2 minutes. Or you can be like unfortunately, most bigots and racists are. They kind of gnaw their way into you and then turn it up. And that's what I try to do. I come out and I try to be a little jovial with the other characters and try to get the audience to like me. And once I think that they do, then I can start making them wish they didn't. This movie version of this show that I had seen just a couple of days before we opened, and from the aspect of the filmmaker, 12 Angry Men starts out in a courtroom, just like the play does, in the jury's room, deliberation room. And the thing is, with the movie, they had the option of camera angles, and we don't have that on stage. In the opening scenes of the movie, you're towering over the cast, and as it progresses, the cameras come down until your eye level, and towards the end, when everyone's feeling claustrophobic, the cameras are then shooting up, so you feel like these people are towering over you and suffocating you, and then we don't have that option on stage. The driving factor in keeping everyone's attention is the dialogue and the way that the dialogue is delivered, and it has to be powerful, and your words have to replace the action because there's not a whole lot of movement. Being in this show, this is probably maybe my 15th production. Being a member of this cast is more powerful than any other show I've done, and I've been thinking about this a lot too, and I think that it's because the 12 characters can be 12 individuals. There's no marriage, there's no brothers, we don't have any backstories aside for our own, and we come onto the stage pretty much strangers and become relatively stranger. I think all 12 people have these unique personalities that, well, they exist in our environment, and pretty much anyone would fall into one of these categories, maybe even two of these categories, pieces of each individual person. The reason that I think number 10 is important is because I'm not a nice person, but I do exist. And to think that people of my character's caliber are floating around in the world, and they are getting on juries, and they are voting with their mindset and not with their thought process, it's kind of scary.
You know you are a sick man.
Sick.
Why don't you sit down?
You tired old son of a bitch.
Oh,
Look at me! You always see you talk to me like that! Look at me! And you barely stand up! Sick. Now listen to me. I'm speaking my piece here, and you're gonna listen.
Well, maybe you just quiet it down.
I will like hell quiet down! Now there's not one of them! Not one! Do you hear me? Not one of them that's any good! Now you ignorant bastards, listen to me. You at the window, you're so goddamn smart! Can't you see we're in a crisis here? We are in a danger! These people are multiplying! This kid on trial, his kind, they are multiplying 5 times our rate. 5 times! That's a statistic. And they hate us. They want to destroy us. Well, it's true. Don't look at me like that! For God's sake, we are in a danger here. And if we don't watch it, if we don't slap them down every chance we get, they're gonna own us. They are gonna breed us right out of existence. Shut up! Now you goddamn geniuses had better listen to me. These people are violent. They're vicious and they're ignorant. And they will cut us up. That's their intent, to cut us up. But this boy on trial, we got him. And I say, that's one. I say we get him before him and his kind get us. And I don't give a goddamn about the law. Why should I? They don't. Now I'm telling you. Now listen, I have heard enough. Just stop all of this. How would you like me to cave your skull in for you, you smart little ass? Where do you get the nerve?
We've heard enough. Sit down and don't open your filthy mouth again.
I'd like to say a word about juror number 4. This role is played by Jan Dalton, someone that I've known for many years here at the Playhouse, someone with an extensive theater background. He studied theater and performing arts in Los Angeles in college. A great fund of knowledge about classical plays, foreign plays like Moliere. He directed a couple of Moliere plays that I was fortunate enough to be cast in, and I'm always impressed by Jan's familiarity with all aspects of theater. As an actor, he strikes a very noble and imposing picture, and as number 4, who is played number 4 is a financier, like a stockbroker, and very arrogant, pompous, self-confident guy who's one of the holdouts about the guilty verdict, and he says that he sticks to the facts. Jan is just wonderful at presenting this kind of character, someone who is unflappable, someone who everyone looks to as a believable person, someone you should give respect to. And Jan can project that on a stage without even having to say a word. So I would certainly like to hear from Jan about his feelings as to how he approaches number 4 in this show. So here's Jan Dalton.
Hi, my name is Jan Dalton, and I'm playing juror number 4 in 12 Angry Men. It's a production that we're doing right now at Old Town Playhouse. I auditioned for the part back in, I guess it was November, when we had open auditions, and the thought was that it might be 12 angry jurors, but fortunately we were able to get 15 to 18 men that would cover these parts. As I prepared, as I always do for auditions, I looked at the script and I looked at the parts that were most interesting to me, and the ones that came to mind were juror number 4, juror number 3, who is the last holdout to the end of the play, and also juror number 10. I found juror number 10 particularly interesting because he's such a bigot. I believe in so many of the things he says, but he just goes about it the wrong way in getting his points across. But juror number 4 was also one of my choices, mainly because, again, he is one of the last holdouts in the play, and he's an interesting character that way. As far as creating a biography for this gentleman, I have various acting sheets and stuff and worksheets that I use, and I created a character for him. I looked at the film, obviously the one in 57 with E.G. Marshall playing the part. I also looked at the one that was done earlier in the 54, I think it was, the teleplay for Westinghouse Theater, which I found fascinating in that they had to do live theater. I'm pretty sure they didn't have any cue cards or anything like that around them. Robert Cummings, I believe, was really the star of that show. He played juror number 8. I believe 8. Is 8 the main one or 7? I'm not. I get them confused. No, it was 8. But at any rate, I created a character for him. I found it very interesting to go into the details of a stockbroker in the 50s and learning about what the stock market was like back then. I created a character for where he was from, going to school at Amherst, getting an economics degree. It was a lot of fun just to do backstory for him and give him a name, which was actually a task that the director had us do for all our characters, but then don't tell anybody about who you are because we were supposed to be anonymous on stage.
Isn't this the dumbest thing you ever seen? 66. It's a joke.
Well, what are we gonna do about it? Look, can't we break it somehow?
Those 6 son of a bitches are never gonna change their minds.
5 of them already have changed their minds. There's no reason why they can't be persuaded to do it again.
How?
Just by using logic.
Logic.
Hey, now just you listen to this man. He's the only one in the room.
You know my opinion?
Go ahead.
I think we ought to quit.
Now what the hell are you talking about?
I think we ought to go in there. These people out there, all of a sudden, are like on some kind of mission or something. We're never going to get the switch. I said we go in there and we tell the judge, we're going to be here all night for Christ's sake. We tell him we're hung, and to hell with this. What am I going to do, bust my brains or something
The
like
most
that?
ridiculous. Look, you took an oath in the courtroom. You can't just quit.
Why not?
It's dishonest. Why don't you just vote not guilty?
I voted guilty because I think he's guilty.
Yeah, now you don't care what happens.
No, why should I?
All right, let's stop this. We're not going to get anywhere like
Well, what the
this.
hell does he want? I gave my honest opinion.
I know.
Well, I suppose you don't think much of it either.
No, I don't. So, again, I look for characters in a show that are interesting to me and hopefully are a little off the type that I normally play. I have played different, I can do the Duke, I can do the King, been doing that part for years, but perhaps playing an arrogant stockbroker who is full of himself and thinks he's smarter and better than everyone else was an interesting change for me. But at the same time, something I found interesting about him was some of the prejudices that come out through him in his lines and the character, but also they sort of, for me, sort of transfixed, went beyond, what I mean to say is went beyond the play itself in just the way we are. I think we have some silent racism or bigotry that lives inside of all of us. Whether we walk down the street and see someone of color and think that there's something's going to happen to us if we engage that person, or just in general, where you say you're not and you believe in equality and and yet these things come out. I know it's true, and I do an interesting thing in the play that became something that actually happened to me before, when I was accosted on the streets for some money, and a weapon was implied, and nothing became of it because I ran off. But the character number 5, I think, when he pulls that knife and shows everyone how to use that knife, for me as a character and me as a person, that really it affects that person when I see him do that, because it brings back those memories of what had happened.
That she described the stabbing by saying she saw the boy raise his arm over his head and plunge the knife down into his father's chest the wrong way.
That's right. It's absolutely right.
Now let's talk about this woman for a minute. Now, she went to bed about 11 o'clock that night. Her bed is next to the window, and she could look out while lying down and see directly into the boy's window across the tracks. She tossed and turned for about an hour, unable to sleep. Finally, she turned towards the window, and looking out, she saw the killing through the windows of a passing L train. Now, she says the lights went out immediately after the killing, but that she got a good look at the boy in the act of actually stabbing his father. She saw him do it. Now, as far as I can see, this is unshakable testimony.
And that's what I'm talking about. That's the whole case.
What do you think?
Another interesting thing I found was that I was on a couple of juries years ago, and 2 things that happen in this show happened to me on those juries. One involved a juror who, after a couple hours of deliberation, had had enough and said, I want to change my vote to not guilty, or whatever the verdict was that we were working on, because he wanted to get out of there. And no one, myself included, had the courage or whatever to stand up and say, you can't say that, you can't be like that, the way it happens in the play. And also, when you're up there, you're supposed to be asked questions from the judge about if you have been involved in a murder or whatever the case is, and you're supposed to be truthful in your answers. And this was another thing where it was a drunk driving offense on a jury that I was, and one of the jurors blurted out later on in the process, oh, I had one of those breathalyzer tests. They don't mean anything. You can't judge anything for that. You cannot convict this guy because those things are fallible. And he actually had a whole court case with that, which is something that, again, bothered me and bothered other people, but no one got up and said anything about it. And I think in that case we ended up being a hung jury, which is something that we come close to in this play as well.
I now have a reasonable doubt.
The vote's 11-1.
What about all that other evidence, huh? All that other stuff, the knife, the whole business.
So there's been some interesting background for me, having been on the juries. Also, the fact that I love drama, and I love, this is a wonderfully written play. And honestly, I think I was a bit dubious at first about actually going in and doing this show. And it was, I think, because when I first read the script, to a lot of people it might seem a little dry and a little old-fashioned and perhaps a little behind the times. But when you actually, having gone through this process and you work on this show and you realize how well this is written with the exclamations, with opinions, and with facts, and how they're all melded together, and when that show is running, it is really a terrific show. And it's a fascinating thing that has come out of this. As hard as it was to sit down and wait your turn, because there are places in it for everybody where they have 2 or 3 pages of nothing, and then they have to interject a line. And if that is not done when it's supposed to, it just wrecks the whole flow of the show. So, but this has all come together, and this has been a tremendous success, and it's really turned out well, and I think everybody has really enjoyed it. In the cast, crew, and I think also audience members that have come to see it, everyone has come away with very positive opinions and reactions to the show. So I'm very happy with this production.
Well, now that I've talked about the actors in 12 Angry Men, I'd like to introduce one of our technical people who also happens to be an actor, a very fine actor himself, and a great professional in many areas of theater arts. Matt has come back to Traverse City after being away. He's been involved with professional playhouses out east and down south, and he and his partner moved back to Traverse City, and we're very fortunate to get him to design this show. I worked with Matt on stage and backstage. As you can see from this set, it is an absolutely faithful reproduction of a 1950s New York City jury room. And we are really fortunate that an audience can come in and if there's a slow moment in the play, which fortunately in this play there's not, they can look around and be transported. We've had several audience members come downstairs and say that they felt like they were there in 1957 in this courtroom. And we feel it too on stage, being completely comfortable and in our location, so to speak. So here's a few words from Matt McCormick.
Well, my name is Matt McCormick, and I'm the scenic designer on 12 Angry Men. I talked to the director, to Debbie Hershey, I think about 3 months ago, maybe 4, about the play and her thoughts on it. And the two of us collaborated a few times, and I think we, as far as a working relationship, it was probably one of the most enjoyable that I think I've had. I have immense respect for Debbie as a new director and her approach to the process, even from the very first production meeting, which began exactly on time and was an hour. So right from there, I knew that I was going to really enjoy working with her in that capacity. But as far as the design goes, of course, after reading the script several times and knowing the story, but getting re-familiar with it and understanding limitations of this space, and its limitations are many, on top of what the script requires, we went back and forth, I guess, with a couple of suggestions of how we could maybe handle this and how we could handle that. Debbie gave me a lot of creative freedom to go ahead and come to her, I guess, with kind of a solution. And the way that I like to work, I kind of think of things in a wish list. I will go off and I will grab images from here and there that I would say, if the sky were the limit, this is what I would like to have. And so I called a number of images and I put together some pages, and then I just threw together a ground plan that we could talk about, at least, in terms of what you're going to need. You got to seat 12 guys. You've got to have a water cooler. You got to have a bathroom. You got to have windows. All of the stuff that's script driven, and then that there's something else that comes from that we want to have just to make the story come to life, or I guess the way to put it is to just make us feel like we're back in 1957. Then that comes. There's a standing ashtray over there. That was an indulgence for me. I wanted it. It says to me 50s, 40s, 30s, and I don't even know if in the play it gets used or not, but it doesn't matter. It's there. Things like that. But the big ticket items. Debbie looked at it. We had a couple of things, very minor things, that we changed, and it was one of those processes that was just very, very smooth. And then from there, what I did to help her, and also to help the people here at the Playhouse when it comes to constructing it, is to build a scale model of the place. I didn't do any sketches really. I did the floor plan, and then I did the model, minus the table and chairs, but enough to get the room and the feel of it, so that when I wasn't here, Kerr Anderson, Jeff Kroger could take that, share it with the crew that David assembled, and questions were pretty much answered if you looked at the model and realized, well, how big is it? Well, it's to scale, so just measure it. Working with those two, talk about a dream team, Jeff and Kerr. So easy to collaborate with, to put heads together and say, wow, what if we did this? Even right down to the crown molding, which you can go so many different ways on that. And I said, let's do it simple. And Kerr came up with one thing, and then they simplified that even more. And he showed me a sample, and I said, yes. It was a dream. We were challenged with the fact that this play came on the heels of Joseph in January, and then we had the holidays in the middle of that. And so we had 2 weeks, roughly, maybe 2.5 of good solid weeks of build time with a couple of major holidays in there. And I was blessed to have help paint this, Claire Shipstead and Lori Weldon, who, again, dreams to work with. We started, oddly enough, with this play, we started with the floor first, because Jeff was gone, Kerr was gone, and the stage was bare. And so Claire and I gridded the floor, and we got the paint down here, so that when they came back to do the build on Monday, I said, doesn't matter, you can throw a drop cloth down or not. If you scuff it up, all the better. So that gave the carpenters a bit of freedom. As far as the paint, the color palette was chosen to be both period. The script calls for the room to be rather drab. It's not a place you want to spend a lot of time in. Excuse me. Not a lot of time in, because it's not terribly comfortable. So we did the walls, did the toning that you see with some stains and watermarks, and if you got really close, you'll even see there's really thick dripped paint to make it look like it's had years and years of paint over it. Scuffs here and there. This table, which Kerr built, this U-shaped table to make it look like it has seen better days, was aged and toned and scuffed and dry brushed with some highlights and patches of varnish that were off and on. What else can I tell you? The sconces that are on the wall by the window, those came right from the warehouse, which was great. And then the one overhead that was purchased actually at a architectural salvage shop, Odom's. We then just took plywood and made a circular ceiling medallion with liquid nails piped on it, if you will, like almost like cake icing to give it some dimension. Claire painted that, dry brushed some brass over it, and voila, we got an Art Deco style light. I don't know any other real details that I can share with you set-wise, except to say that the lighting choice that Bill Fishburne, the lighting designer, in the script called for fluorescent lighting, and we decided, and I think it driven mainly by Bill, but I concurred with him that fluorescent, we decided to go incandescent, and he cooled it, I think, with his gels a bit, but there's nothing about the story that says it must be under fluorescent light, so that was just an artistic choice, but I think it worked. Very pleased with how this all came together and the time that it came together, and I'm glad that the actors feel that they've been given a place in which they can immerse themselves in the characters and just sort of get lost in the role, and that's really what this is all about. As a designer, I get a lot of satisfaction when a design that I've done comes together and in the end looks like what I wanted it to look like. Well, of course, who's not going to be happy with that? But really, these guys in this story, telling the story, inhabiting these characters, bringing it fully fleshed to life is, it was a joy to watch, and it was incredibly moving. I am proud of them to the nth degree, to Debbie, to the whole production staff, to the Playhouse. I'm thrilled that they have such a hit in these winter months, and I'm really, really proud to have been a part of that. So I hope that everyone who came and saw it enjoyed it immensely, and will remember it, because I know that I certainly will. It was an honor to work on this one.
I'd like to say a few words about juror number 7, who's played by Joe Kilpatrick. Wow, Joe is a remarkable actor. I've known him for probably 20 years, maybe more. And preceding my meeting Joe, I met and have worked with his mom, Casey Kilpatrick. This is a theater family. Casey has been in numerous productions on stage. She's also a wonderful theater artist. She helped paint the set for Peter Pan, which we did way back in 2001. A wonderful rendition of The Lost Boys, Island in the Jungle. But Casey's son, Joe, has also been on this stage and over at the Studio Theater for many, many years. The last time I saw him was in a production of Waiting for Godot, maybe a year ago. And he's a great comic actor in both the physical sense and in the intellectual sense, but he's not limited to comedy, obviously, playing a very important and serious role in this show. I also happened to see him in the Studio Theater in the stage version of Stephen King's Misery. And he was a marvelous, he played the writer in that, and a very compelling actor with a terrific sense of timing, actually off stage as well as on stage. A very entertaining guy, very friendly man, a very imposing man. He's a big fella. And that helps to cement a lot of the scenes in this play. It can be a very grim set of scenes in 12 Angry Men, and Joe Kilpatrick's character, he's the guy who would rather be at a ball game than be in the jury room here. And he gives quite a bit of comic relief to this show. As I said, the audience laughs at places that we can't really predict, but Joe's responses were clearly intended by the playwright to break the tension, and he does a wonderful job of that. Unfortunately, I understand he's not available to be interviewed, which is a shame because if you see Joe in the flesh, you'll know what I'm talking about as far as what kind of personality this man has got. So I regret that we won't be able to feature a live interview of Joe Kilpatrick.
Just that he could be important once.
No, he wouldn't really lie. But perhaps he would make himself believe that he had heard those words and recognized the boy.
Well, it's 9-3 in favor of guilty.
That isn't the living end. I mean, what are you basing it on? Stories this guy made up. He had a write for Amazing Detective Monthly. He made a fortune. Listen, there are facts staring you right in your face. Every one of them says this kid killed his own man. I mean, for crying out loud, his own attorney knew he didn't stand a chance right from the beginning. His own lawyer. I mean, you could see it. He deserves the chair. Follow this one up with dancing and refreshments.
Mr. Foreman.
I have a leg to stand on. You know that, don't you?
Well, I don't feel that way. There are a lot of details that never came out.
Let's just go. I mean, nobody's going to change their opinion. Let's take it to the judge.
I don't think the court will accept a hung jury. We haven't been in here very long.
Well, let's find out. Listen, Sonny. Nobody around here is going to tell me what words I understand and what words I don't. Especially him, because I'll knock his goddamn Middle European head off.
Can we stop arguing here for 2 minutes? Can't we just stick to the subject?
You're sitting here pulling stories out of thin air. I mean, what are we supposed to believe? I'm telling you, if this guy was sitting ringside at the Dempsey-Furpo fight, he'd be trying to tell us that Furpo won. I mean, look, what about the old man? Are we supposed to believe that he didn't get up and run through his door and see the kid tearing down the stairs 15 seconds after the killing? He's only saying he did to be important? I mean, what's the point of the whole...
Hold it a second.
What about you?
Now, just a minute. According to the woman across the street, she's...
Now listen, I'll tell you something here. I'm getting a little tired of this whole thing. I mean, all this yakking's getting us nowhere. So I'm gonna break it up here. I'm changing my vote to not guilty.
Hey, you what?
Hey, you heard me. I've had enough.
What do you mean you've had enough? That's not an
Hey,
answer.
listen, you just take care of yourself.
Try to
He is
take
right.
care of business.
That is not an answer. What kind of man are you? You have sat here and voted with the others, voted guilty because there were some baseball tickets burning a hole in your pocket, and now you have changed your vote because you say you are tired of all the talking here?
Now listen,
You
buddy.
have no right to play like this with a man's life. It is a terrible and ugly thing to do. Don't you care?
Now, wait a minute. You can't talk like
I
that.
can talk like that to you. If you want to vote not guilty, then vote that way because you are convinced he is not guilty. Not because you had enough. And if you think he is guilty, then vote that way. Or don't you have the guts to do what you think is right?
Now listen.
Guilty or not guilty?
I told you, not guilty.
Why?
Hey, goddamn you! I don't have to.
You have to. Say it. Why?
I don't think he's guilty.
I'd like to say a few words about juror number 3, played by Brett Nichols. Brett is another veteran actor of the Playhouse, although he's of the somewhat younger set. In this play, Brett is pretty much the protagonist and the fulcrum of the plot, in which he is the holdout. He's also got a personal vendetta that comes from his past experience with a young man of his own, which he tells a very heartbreaking and compelling story. Brett's character is quite intelligent. He's a guy who, along with his wife, put together a delivery service. And in the beginning of the play, he's talking to juror number 4 about how successful this messenger delivery service is, and it's called Beck and Call, I believe. And when he doesn't get a good response from juror number 4 as to the name of his business, he says, well, my wife came up with that name. A character that the audience really has to like, despite the fact that he is so aggressive and poorly behaved throughout the run of this play. And I think that this particular role calls for, actors call it an arc. He comes into the play at a certain place and he exits the play at a totally different place. And it's a real acting challenge in a script like this to get to that place. And given that this play has evolved over so far 9 performances, Brett has expressed the feeling of this character more and more. I think it takes a lot of courage to be vulnerable to an audience in a way that belies the nature of your character. By that I mean he comes into the play as a very aggressive, self-assured, but damaged man because of his family life. And at the end of the play, he comes to an understanding of that and gives us resolution. So this is a pivotal role, number 3. Now, Brett, I've been on stage with in Les Mis. He was Jean Valjean, a wonderfully acted and sung character. He's been in a lot of musicals. This guy can do it all. He can sing and dance and act. So it's really been a pleasure to be on stage with Brett Nichols again. I really couldn't say enough great things about Brett. And I think that I would defer and leave the great things to Brett to say about. So here's Brett Nichols.
Hi, my name is Brett Nichols, and I play juror number 3 in the Old Town Playhouse production of 12 Angry Men. The process has been a huge wake-up call for me. I'll start out by saying it's my first non-musical show that I've ever done in the Old Town Playhouse main stage. Typically, I'm a musical theater guy. Done a couple non-musical theaters over at our smaller theater studio at the Depot, but this is my first main stage non-musical, and I'll tell you what, it couldn't have been a better experience.
I vote not guilty.
Oh, brother! Okay, now what are you talking about? Come on, it's like we're all going crazy in here or something. The kid is guilty. Why don't you pay attention to the facts? Listen, tell him, will you? It's gonna be a goddamn joke.
The vote is 8-4 in favor of guilty.
I mean, everybody's heart is starting to bleed for this punk little kid like the president just declared it. Love your underprivileged brother week or something. Now listen, I want you to tell me why you changed your vote, huh?
First of all, I'll start out with the actors that we had on stage. Fantastic actors, Old Town Playhouse veterans. I was talking to somebody after the show last night, and I think we determined that we had about 250 years of combined acting experience up on this stage for this production. So you couldn't have asked for a better show. 12 Angry Men is a very important piece of work. It's transcendent. It was written a long time ago. It was written in the 50s. It took place in 1957, the show itself did, but all of the topics that were dealt with in this play are pertinent to today. Topics from racism to racial bias to personal motivators of decisions of why people make the decisions that they do regarding a jury and why somebody is guilty and why they're not. The process for the show began with auditions about 2 months ago. A whole lot of people showed up, and I was lucky enough to be cast in the show. And from there, it just started with character development. Actually, rehearsing and blocking the show was some of the least amount of work that we had to do. We're in a very small space. We're confined typically to a table and a little bit of space on either side of that table. So the blocking, while it was important to make sure that it worked for the audience, was the least amount of work that we had to do. At least for me personally, that's how it felt. For me, character development was one of the biggest things that I had to work on and deal with. I made a deal with myself that when I was cast in this, that I would only watch the movie one time at the very beginning of the process, because admittedly, I'd never seen the movie. I'd read the script before, but I'd never seen the movie. So I decided I'd watch the movie one time to get a general feel for it. But I did not want to influence my character, my juror number 3, from what I saw in the movie. I wanted to develop that character from beginning to end on my own, and that's exactly what I did. As I started thinking about juror number 3, who has no name, he's juror number 3 in the script, he's juror number 3 in the program, and Debbie, our director, when we were on stage rehearsals, we were not allowed to call each other by our names. We would call each other by our juror numbers, whether it was in casual conversation or whether we were rehearsing the show. And we did this because in a jury room, it's anonymity. You don't know each other. You don't know each other's backstory aside from what somebody in a jury room decides that they want to share. So when I started building my character, first I developed my character's name. And my character's name now, I can tell you, was David Call, but it's K-A-H-L. And I got that because I have a line in the show where I own a messenger service, and it's called the Beck and Call Company, so I decided I'd throw that in there. So David Call was my character's name. He did own a messenger service. That part was revealed in the show, but other than that, aside from the fact that he was married with a 20-year-old son whom he hasn't seen in 2 years, which was part of the baggage that he carried with him into the deliberation room, you don't know much about the character. So I built on that character. I talked with our assistant director and our director about my character's backstory, where he comes from, how he grew up, why he's angry, why he is the way he is. And I developed all that from beginning to end, and that really helped me keep that character in place the entire time that we're on stage. Because when you're on stage, you become that character, and you've got to make sure that you know who your character is. And that was a huge part for me in helping me get through this. That and the support that we had from the production staff, the director especially, and all the other veteran actors that I was fortunate enough to share the stage with.
Here, look at this. Now that kid you just decided was not guilty was seen ramming this thing into his father. Well, look at it, Mr. Reasonable Doubt.
But that's not the knife. Don't you remember?
You come in here with your sanctimonious talk about slum kids and injustice, and you start making up a bunch of stories, and maybe you start getting through to some of these old ladies in here. But you're not getting through to me. I've had enough. What's the matter with you people, huh? Every one of you in here knows this kid is guilty. He's got to burn. We're letting him slip through our fingers here.
Slip through our fingers? Are you his executioner?
Well, I'm one of them.
Oh, maybe you'd like to pull the switch.
No, for this kid, you bet I'd like to pull the switch.
I'm sorry for you.
Listen, don't you start with me now.
Ever since you walked in here, you've been behaving like some self-appointed public avenger.
I'm telling you, shut up.
You want to see this boy die because you personally want it, not because of the facts.
Shut up.
You're a sadist.
Son of a bitch. Shut up! God damn it, let me go! Kill him! Ah, kill him!
You don't really mean you'll kill me, do you?
If you have the opportunity to be in 12 Angry Men, or even just to see it live especially, I would highly recommend taking the chance to do it. Any one of the roles in 12 Angry Men will boost your acting ability because, again, developing a character, maintaining that character all the way through the process is such an experience and such a challenge, but it makes you so much better of a performer. From an audience standpoint, I don't think there's a time period in our lifetime that this show will not relate to and will not affect. We could have put 2015 clothing on and done the exact same show with the exact same dialogue up on this stage, and it would have been pertinent to this time. See 12 Angry Men, be in 12 Angry Men. It is a fantastic experience, and the show will never die.
Well, what do you want? I think he's guilty.
We want your argument.
I gave you my arguments.
We're not convinced. We want to hear them again. We have as much time as it takes.
Everything. Everything that came out in that courtroom, but I mean everything, says that kid is guilty. What do you think, I'm an idiot or something? You lousy bunch of bleeding hearts. You're not going to intimidate me. I'm entitled to my opinion. I can sit in this goddamn room for a year. Well, somebody say something. Look, why don't you take the old man? The old man who lived there and heard everything. Oh, take the knife. What, just because he found one like it? And what, the old man saw him right there in the stairs. And what's the difference? How many seconds it took, huh? What's the difference? The old man saw him do it. Every little thing. The knife falling through a hole in his pocket. Come on. I'm telling you, you can pace around the room all you want, but you can't prove he didn't make it to the door. Every single thing that has gone on in here has been twisted and turned. That bit about the glasses. Look, you don't know if she had them on or not. The woman testified in court. Well, that's it. What more do you want? That's the whole case. That business about hearing the kid yell, huh? The phrase was, "I'm gonna kill you." And that's what he said to his own father. And I don't care what kind of man it was. It was his father. These goddamn rotten kids. I know them. What they do to you, what they're like, how they kill you every single day. My God! Don't you see? Why am I the only one who sees? Jesus, I can feel the knife going in.
It's not your boy. He's somebody else.
Let him live.
Okay. Not guilty.
I have come to look at this show in several different ways based on how the audiences each night have helped us to define the movement and even the purpose of the play. To give an example, some of the cast members were remarking after last night's show that the audience laughed at certain places that they had never even responded to before, and they seemed to be very inappropriate is too strong a word because an audience is entitled to respond any way they feel. But there is a scene where juror number 8 is reenacting one of the witnesses in the trial who has had a stroke and has to drag one leg. And Rick Korndorfer is demonstrating how long it takes for this gentleman to get from one place to another. And the audience, apparently seeing him drag that one leg, they laughed. And of course, there are different kinds of laughter. There's amusement, there's discomfort. I think that this was a combination in that juror number 3, who is a real cynic and a skeptic about number 8's attempts to put doubt into the minds of the jurors, ridicules number 8 for doing this demonstration. And so I think the combination of the two characters in conflict led the audience to laughter, which surprised us. There are several other places in the play which, at first reading, would not seem to be a comedy in any way, shape, or form. But I would say there are at least a dozen places in this play where the audience responds and either titters or actually has downright laughter. So I think that I've come to see the play in a different way over these 10 performances. Well, we've got 9 down and 1 to go tonight. And who knows what we're going to see tonight. But it's been not only a learning experience about the play itself, but about the gentlemen that I've been playing with, some of whom I've been on stage with before, some of whom are absolutely new to the Playhouse, as I've said before. So it's just been a remarkable, unique experience, which I wonder if I'll ever have that opportunity to experience again. It's very, very unusual to have 12 actors, much less 12 men, dealing with a subject matter that's got a lot of maleness and authority mixed in. And this can be looked at as a classic play. I mean, Shakespeare was hundreds of years ago. This was only 50 years ago. But for those of you who have seen the film or seen this on stage before or just read the play, it is a very, very unique experience. Reginald Rose wrote a script that is unsurpassed. Not a perfect script, but nothing in this world is perfect. It's an absolutely marvelous, excellent production. So I would just say in passing that I'm so glad that Wayne Erreca has chosen to make a documentary of this process from rehearsal through production and now almost to its conclusion. And I sincerely hope that you've enjoyed this and that it may pique an interest in 12 Angry Men if you haven't experienced this wonderful piece of theater before. So thank you very much, and I think I'll head back to the jury room.